Am I the a-hole for excluding my ex from my gyno exam of my miscarriage? My ex-M, early 30s, and IF, late 20s, had a complicated on and off relationship. Then, after we had broken up again, I found out I was pregnant. I told him, even though I knew our relationship was over. He made it clear several times that the pregnancy wouldn't change our relationship status, even though we still shared some intimacy and complicity. Initially, he wanted me to have a baby deletion, but after weeks of difficult conversations, he said he'll be present as a co-parent when I decide to keep the baby. However, he expressed doubts about my ability to be a good mother and even said something that haunts me to this day, that an accident ending it all, implying our lives might be easier. Shortly after, I began experiencing symptoms of a possible miscarriage, bleeding and cramping. I was terrified and reached out to him, asking for his support and presence, as he promised he'd be there in case of a miscarriage. But he said he couldn't come because he didn't have access to a car. He stayed in touch over text, but I spent that night alone, scared and in pain. The next day, he encouraged me to go to the hospital and said he would meet me there. When I arrived, I decided to ask him to stay in the waiting room during the gynecological exam. It was an incredibly vulnerable moment for me, both physically and emotionally, and I felt I needed privacy to process the results before sharing them with him. At that moment, I knew deep inside that I had lost the baby. Given the fragile state of our relationship and some of the hurtful things he had said previously, I didn't feel comfortable having him there during such an intimate and painful experience. He was upset, saying that I excluded him and disrespected his role as the father. He told me later that this decision confirmed for him that we shouldn't try to maintain any further connection. After the hospital visit, he didn't check in on me for several days. I mourned alone. When he finally came over to talk, we had an emotional conversation. I cried heavily, and just before leaving, he passionately kissed me goodbye, left, and cut off all contact. I understand that he was shocked too, and I didn't mean to exclude him. At the time, I was just trying to protect my mental health and cope in the best way I could. Yet he doesn't understand my decision and said he'd resent me his whole life for this. Now, I'm questioning whether I handled things the right way. I never intended to hurt him. So, am I the a-hole for setting that boundary during that vulnerable moment?
Here are the top comments.
It's only pregnancy and childbirth that people treat like a spectator sport. No one should have anyone they don't want in a room when undergoing a medical procedure.
Not the a-hole, it was happening to you and it was a medical appointment. You don't need to let anyone in if you're uncomfortable.
It wouldn't have changed anything, so not the a-hole. From what he had said, I'm surprised he would have wanted to be there. It would be super awkward.